Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's Cup SEO webinar, which is called Get to Know SEO. My name is Joey Donovan Guido, and I'm the owner of Cup SEO, and I'll be your host for the next hour, talking about all kinds of different tidbits about search engine optimization. But before we get started with any of the details, let's take just a moment to get the lay of the land of webinars on air, because I like my webinars to be as interactive as possible. Okay, I know it's a lot easier when we're all in the same room. You guys can just raise your hand and ask a question. But in this case, I like to leave chat on for the entire webinar. So if you've got a question or a comment, or even if you're having a problem with the technology, if you can't hear me or it's choppy or something, you can go ahead and click on that little gray thought bubble or speech bubble in the upper left-hand side of your screen. Once you do that, you should see a gray bar open up on the right side of your screen, and this is your chat window. All right, so anytime you have a question, just go ahead to the lower part of that window. You'll see the blinking cursor, and you can go ahead and just ask your question. I might not get to it right away, but as soon as I can, I'll be happy to address it. If it happens to be a question that's way too in-depth for our webinar, we can always have a cup of coffee and talk about it a little further. Okay? So with that said, I'd like to ask you guys a question. And that question is, what is SEO? So for those of you who don't know what this acronym means, SEO is a shortened way to say search engine optimization. Okay. And from a global, very high level view, what SEO is a way for people who are searching on Google and Bing and other search engines to be connected with you. Okay. So for instance, if you were a local ice cream shop and somebody searched for ice cream shop or ice cream parlor or some kind of a keyword phrase that was similar, you'd want them to find you, right, when they did that search. And so does Google. So search engine optimization is a way for Google literally to deliver good search results to the person who's looking for something. Okay. In my case, that might be SEO services, website development or website building, user experience conversion, blogging, stuff like that. So now that we have a real high view of SEO, let's dive in and talk about the different characteristics of the three parts of SEO. It's very interesting because not that long ago, keywords were a much larger piece of this SEO pie. They're still very important. As you can see, they take up about a third of the equation. But over time, what's happened is content and social media have become more and more prominent. So what I find really interesting is that when people talk about SEO, they kind of, if they have any understanding at all, it kind of revolves around those keywords. So what does that mean? What are keywords or keyword phrases? And how do they work in SEO? How do you implement that? So the first thing I'd like to talk about is what I call the keyword report. And I've got a sample here for you guys to see kind of the format that Cup SEO follows. We've created this from scratch, and it really helps us define what are the best keywords to use, good keywords, okay keywords, and keywords that we just want to avoid for various reasons. But I wanted to show this to you guys to give you an idea, if you're going to be doing this work yourself or some iteration of this type of work, kind of how to set it up. Okay. So when we look for keywords, we can derive them in different ways. The easiest way is going to be to think about it yourself, talk with your team and your customers about what are the keywords that people use or you think people use to find what you do. Okay. So in my case, keywords like search engine optimization or SEO can be really helpful. So this is also a really easy way to get a fairly accurate list. All right, you're not going to really know any other data other than what people think the keywords might be. But you've got to start somewhere. And depending on your comfort level, that may be as far as you're willing to go at this point. Okay? And you're going to hear me say this more than once in this webinar, that we want to make this easy. We want to make this doable in a step-by-step way. So if you're a geeky guy like me, you're going to want to go into what's called Google Analytics, or specifically Google Keyword Planner. And in that keyword planner, you can actually put a keyword or a keyword phrase and analyze it. See how many people are searching within Wisconsin, Dane County, Madison, New York, whatever. See how many people are searching for a phrase each month, how much competition you have, other people out there using that phrase, and start to really get an in-depth list, which is what the keyword report looks like. That's the way we do it, of course. So you guys will see here on the report, you've got your sample keywords on the left. Well, the keywords have been removed to protect their identity. And also, don't want to give that information away if it was for a customer. Want to keep that confidential. But what you can see is this particular customer did business in Minnesota. That's what the MINN is for. And also in Iowa. That was their landscape of where they did business. So we've got, for instance, here for sample keyword 1, 320 people searched for that particular keyword phrase in Minnesota, and only 10 in Iowa, which makes sense, right? Iowa has a much lower density of people. And then over here, we've got our competition. So in Minnesota, it's low competition for that keyword, whereas in Iowa, there's no competition, okay? So this is how we lay out the keyword report. And then once we do this, we put all the keyword phrases in a hierarchy of what are the best ones to use, which ones are good, okay, and do not use. And I suggest you do the same, all right? Even if you're just doing this from conversations with people and getting the best idea you can. There's a lot more, excuse me, there's a lot more that goes into defining where these keywords go that we won't get into today, but I did want to give you at least a taste of what to look for and what to do. So let's go back to the scenario where you say, Joey, everything you just said is over my head. I don't even barely know how to turn my computer on, let alone do analytics and search for keywords. And that's why I'm saying, you know what then? Pick the very best keywords you can. Do it in an analog way, okay? And if you want, take those keywords and test them. Just put them into Google search and organically see what shows up. And if things that show up are similar to your business, then you've chosen a decent keyword. At least Google's telling you that it's relevant. If you put the keyword in and you see nothing that has to do with what your business is about, then you're going to want to try a different keyword. A really good real-world example of this is probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I was doing a really large project for Wyden. I'm sorry, not Wyden, for Granger out in Janesville. And we were optimizing hundreds and hundreds of their pages, their product pages. And one of their products was made by a company called Smith & Wesson. And Smith & Wesson, that name is usually associated with firearms of all types, right? So I'm doing my keyword report and my research, and I'm like, wow, this is getting like tens of thousands of hits a month. There's low competition. But as soon as I tested it with the natural Google result search, what happened was what I expected, is that all the results came up as firearms, which had nothing to do with the hydraulic motor we were trying to sell at Granger. So of course that went on the do not use as a keyword list. But sometimes it's really eye-opening. Things that you won't expect will be really good keyword phrases, making them plural or singular. or adding a definer or what I call a qualifier, like Madison or Madison, Wisconsin, can really help. So I'm just going to go ahead and check and see if we've got any questions so far. We have no questions. Come on, guys. We've got a lot of people at this webinar. If anyone has questions, please feel free to ask. And if you joined in a little bit late, you're going to see a little gray talk bubble in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. Go ahead and click on that, and then the chat will automatically open up on your right-hand side. Ask any questions that you like. So now we've taken a look at keywords themselves. Let's now jump back and look at content. All right. Now, what I'm talking about when I say content, I'm actually talking about the words on the page. And here is an example of a web page from Cuppa SEO's website. But before we dissect it, let's take a step back for a moment and just take a look at what constitutes good, relevant content. Because we've said it's 1/3 of our SEO equation. So we need to understand what goes into it. Again, at a very high level, good content is well written, which you might expect. But here's something that you might not expect. It also needs to be rich, relevant, and customer facing. In other words, we want that content as much as possible to be all about the viewer, the customer, okay? So what that means is that we want to talk about customer pain points, customer problems, solutions, or information that's going to be helpful to them. And what's really happened, there's been a huge shift, and it's nothing new. A huge shift started to occur when blogging started to become popular. And we started moving away from these traditional ways of marketing that were more like, buy this, buy this, buy this, okay? Because we want you to. And it started to become more about, hey, we understand you're having trouble with your SEO. We can help you. And we can help you get more customers to your website. And once they're there, we can help you set up your website so they understand what the heck is going on, and we make it easy for them to take a next step. Whether that's to make a phone call, fill out a form, or just read a couple of blog posts if that's where they're at. Okay? So it's made this shift from real hard selling to what we call content marketing. Content marketing is very friendly, it's very benefit driven, but most of all, it's based on creating relationships in the virtual world. Okay? So for example, when we do our Blogging 101 webinar, which is coming up in a couple of months, we talk a lot about how we build these relationships and why they're so important on the blog. But whether it's a blog or a web page or a social media post, it's all going to be the same. What we're looking to do is create trust without actually being there to talk with the person. So how do we do that? We do that through our content. Okay? Now let's take a look at this page from Cuppa SEO's website. This is the page where people can learn about search engine optimization and fill out a form to request a meeting or more information or whatever it is they need. They might just have questions. So let's take a look at this. What we've got at the top of the page is your headline. Okay, perk up your website with SEO that attracts customers and builds relationships. So what we've got in there, we've got what I like to call some romance, right? It's just not straightforward information. It's kind of cute. Perk up your website, Cuppa SEO. Any of you who know me on this webinar know I am a coffee fanatic. And after the webinar, I'll probably have a cup or two. So there's your headline. Then what you see below that is the introductory body copy, right? Does your website build relationships? Trying to make it customer facing, asking a question that will have them assess their content before we ever talk. right? So we're kind of building that relationship. And this goes on throughout the content. And right over here, you see a big green button, which is a call to action on this page. Let's talk about caffeinating my SEO. That is there in this position because we want that to be easily visible on a desktop like we are right now. Or if somebody's looking at this page on a mobile device, right? We want that up there. They just read those first 2 paragraphs and they say, wow, this sounds really cool. I want to talk to this guy. Let me click the button and move on with my day. This goes into user experience, which we're not going to get into too much today. But if you're interested in this, we have another webinar that's called A Holistic Approach to Online Marketing. It's also free. All of our webinars are complimentary. And you can feel free to come to my website after this webinar and sign up for that. That talks a lot about user experience, which is how you're laying out the pages, how easy is it to understand things. And this button would actually be part of UX, user experience, but also more so conversion, getting people to do what you want them to take that next step that you'd like them to take. So as we look at this page, we're looking at rich, relevant content. I won't make you read it all. We're also looking to engage with people with a nice, fun, clear photo. For me, you guys will see most of my photos are coffee-centric. And that's the way I like it. It helps give personality to my site and shows people who I am. So that being said, let's stop talking about coffee and let's move on to social media. So you guys will see here in my very high-tech drawing that social media is broken out into 2 main steps. Or categories. So what we're looking at here is human-to-human interaction versus human-to-digital interaction. All right, so even though we're online, what we're doing with social media usually is connecting with people, right? So we do that on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Periscope, whatever it is that you guys like to use, whatever's most appropriate for conversing with your customers. If you're a business to consumer, quite often Facebook is the best choice. If you're business to business, quite often LinkedIn is your best choice. And that kind of makes sense, right? When you think about it. On the other side of my chart here is Google Plus and Google My Business. So let's talk a little bit about that for a minute, because there's a little known fact that can really, really, really help you when you're looking to optimize your social media, okay? When it comes to Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and the like, all of those account for about 20% of the social media authority, okay, online. So 20% out of 100. If you added up all of those networks, okay? And that's why I'm telling you that those are all for human-to-human interaction. I want to talk to my customers, to my followers, to my colleagues, okay, etc. But if I want to get good SEO value from my social media, I've got to use Google My Business and push it through Google My Business, which of course is the same as Google Plus, okay? If that sounds confusing, that's because it is. Google has made this kind of a strange, hard to understand process. But just know that if you want to get good SEO value for your social media, you'll need to have a Google My Business page. You'll need to optimize it. And then once you've done that, every time you post something on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever, take that same content, that same photo, and post it through your Google My Business page. Now, what that does is make Google happy, okay? And I know that sounds kind of funny, right? Because, you know, Google has made themselves very important. It's kind of egotistical, right? To say, you know, we're going to give you 20% Facebook, LinkedIn, and all that. We want the full 80% because we're that important. And what often happens, and what I often talk about with people, is that there's a lot of resistance to that. When you find out that you kind of feel like you have to do something, right? That's normal of anybody. If we're told to do something, we resist. And in this case, Google's telling us to get this real good SEO value, we've got to use their platform. But anybody who knows me knows I have a very strong belief about this, a very strong philosophy. And that is we have two choices, okay? On the one hand, we can say, I don't want to do it. I'm going to resist. It kind of bugs me. Or we can use it to our advantage, okay? We can use Google My Business to our advantage to up our SEO value and to connect with Google so they see that we're active in social media and that we're using their channels. And what happens when we do that is that they give us what's called authority, okay? It's almost, credibility or kudos or just buoyancy online. So we start to rank higher in natural search results, which is really the whole point of SEO, right? So we can get found easier, so we can connect with more people. So Google My Business also helps you get found locally, okay? And we're not going to get too deep into that. I actually just did a webinar, actually a workshop on Tuesday about that with a local group called the Middleton Chamber. So those of you who are local, probably even some of you are members, all right? Sorry to keep plugging my webinars, but we also do have Google My Business webinars. So if it's something you'd like to learn more about, feel free and sign up for that. You guys can probably tell I like doing webinars. But the reason I like doing webinars is because it's a really good way to help give you real, solid, relevant information, right? It's like that content we talked about, but instead of putting it on my website or my blog, we're doing it through the channel of a webinar. Okay. So next up, let's take a look at your website and blog, specifically about implementation. And what I'm talking about here is that once you have a good keyword report, once you have really good, solid, relevant content, what do you do with it? Where the heck do you put it, right? That's probably what most of you are wondering. So let's take a look. This is a dissection of another SEO, a cup SEO page. This page actually looks completely different now. But I kind of like this slide because it's got a coffee cup. All right, so there are 6 main areas that we're going to want to optimize. This is going to be true for your home page, any page on your website, and also on your blog. Okay? So the first area that you can see identified by a big blue number 1 is what's called your title tags. Okay? This always sits at the top of the page, whether you're on a Mac, on a PC, whether you're on Safari, Chrome, Internet Explorer, doesn't matter. That's going to sit at the top of the page. And what that is one of the first spots that's an identifier for Google as to what that page is about. Okay? So in this case, this is all about the keyword report, okay, and optimizing content. It's all about SEO. So that title tag and all the keywords that I build into this page need to be directly related to the content that's on the page, which of course makes sense, right? So in other words, we don't want to be sticking in keywords just because they might be good keywords that don't have anything to do with this. So since we're on an SEO page, I'm not really going to talk too much about blogging or web design or the kind of coffee I like to drink. Okay? We want to keep it very specific. So title tag, we always want to lead with the very best keyword phrase we have for that page. We never really want to lead with our company name unless we're Nike or New Balance or something like that, where the company name is very well known and it's actually a brand, you know, that people buy that type of product, like Nike sneakers, right? But for someone like me, or probably you, to lead with our company name is using up the most prime real estate of that title tag for something that doesn't really have a lot of value. Okay? So there's your title tag. Number 2 is your headline. And this is, sorry, guys. So this one is a very straightforward headline, right? There's no romance here. So, but it works well for an example to show you that we've got search engine optimization, which is a keyword phrase, as well as the acronym SEO. So we've got two keyword phrases in that headline. Your third area, by the way, that number 2 there, that headline is your primary headline on the page. And for those of you that understand code a little bit or who blog, will recognize that as what's called your H1. Headline number 1, that's again your primary headline, holds the most weight of pretty much anything on the page. Okay? Whereas number 3, what's in a keyword report, that's what's called an H3. So just a little bit of additional information about these two kinds of headlines. An H1, you only want to use an H1 once on a page. So if you've got 10 headlines, have one predominant headline, one primary. The rest of them should be H3s. And you guys can see here, we've got what's in a keyword report. That's one H3. Optimizing your website content is another H3. If you were to put 2 H1s, 2 main headlines on a web page, you're going to confuse Google. They're not going to know which one is the top, which one is the primary, numero uno. And it's also going to confuse readers because you're not giving them a hierarchy of importance on the page. Number 4, you see our little minimalist SEO cup there. That's our image for the page. And this is probably one of the easiest, lowest hanging fruit that you can utilize to optimize your website. 99.9 of every client that comes to Cuppa SEO, whether they need us to build their website from scratch or just optimize an existing website, 99.9 do not have their images optimized. And oftentimes they've spent thousands of dollars on SEO. The problem is they've done their search engine optimization work through a web development company that really doesn't have an understanding of SEO. But you know what? Now you do, and you know what to look for, right? So whether you're using Cuppa SEO or another agency or the people you're currently working with, you can say, hey, you said you did my search engine optimization on my site. When are you going to optimize my images? And see what they say. But anyway, now you guys know that number 4, optimizing those images, is super important. What this does is it winds up showing up on search results under Google Images. And this can become super important if you're an architect or a landscaper or you do remodeling like kitchens and bathrooms. Okay? Showing all those pictures on your website, on your blog, and optimizing them so Google can find them. So if I'm looking for instance, bathroom renovation, maybe my house is 100 years old and I'm just ready to update that bathroom. I type in bathroom renovation and images. I might want to look and see what kind of images come up, right? Maybe for ideas or maybe for people who do it in my area that actually really do a good job, high quality. So if I've named that image, bathroom remodeling by Madison Remodeling Co. or whatever, That gives it a much better chance of getting found in images. But even if nobody looks at Google Images, it gives us a better chance of getting found in a natural search result. Okay, it adds a little bit more of that buoyancy. Let's check and see if anybody's got some questions. Oh, we've got a question. Let's take a moment and address it. Hey, Kathleen, how are you? Kathleen had a question. She said, Joey, when you say title tag, where exactly is that? Appears it's what I call the navigation bar. So that's an excellent question, Kathy. And let's just take a quick look. Your title tag, if you're using a Mac, you're going to have 2 windows open in order to see that. Okay. And no matter what browser you're using, or Mac or PC, if you're not seeing it, it may be turned off. Okay. So when you say navigation, it's not the navigation, Kathy. It's right up here. See this gray bar? Oh, this gray bar that says SEO, search engine optimization, Madison WI, and then behind that it says Cuppa SEO. So typically, if this was a live web page, up here you would have your URL, okay? And down below the title tag is your actual page navigation, which is right here. Cuppa SEO, about, services, and so on. Okay, so it's this little gray bar. And another thing about title tags, since we kind of went back to it, is you don't want to go past 70 characters. Okay, super important. If you go past 70 characters, including spaces, Google might get mad. Okay, and take a couple of points off. All right, because if you run long. Just a side note. So, Kathy, please let me know if that answered your question. If not, we can try and talk about it a little bit more over coffee or over the phone. So our couple last points here is number 5 is all the rest of the copy on the page, right? What we call in the industry your body copy, because it's on the body of the web page. So that's going to be all of your sentences, all of your bullet points. Again, remember, that's going to be relevant content. And then we want to weave in relevant keyword phrases where it makes sense. Okay? If it feels awkward or reads weird, and Kathy is an excellent writer, so I know you get this, Kathy. If it doesn't sound right, if it sounds forced, excuse me, don't do it, because Google will know it's forced, and just as importantly, so will the reader. All right, if we succeed at bringing somebody to a page, we want them to enjoy their time there. Literally, we want them to enjoy their time there and have them feel like they're getting some help. So number 5 is all the body copy, and number 6 is what we call your text link. Okay, so that's this little blue content here. Feel free to contact Cuppa SEO to discuss your SEO needs further. So a lot of people in these kind of text links will typically say, contact us, which is clear, makes sense, but it's a lost opportunity. Okay, because that text link has SEO value. So we want to use it. Again, let's take advantage of it. Let's utilize what Google is giving us as a tool. So here in this one, it's pretty straightforward. Contact Cuppa SEO to discuss your SEO needs further. We've got SEO in there twice. If this was my web design page, it might say contact Cuppa SEO to discuss your web design needs further. It's a little bit more verbose, a little bit more elaborate, but it's getting the SEO value in. And those are the 6 pieces or the six sections you're going to want to optimize on each and every page you create. So what this does, it's kind of like a sandwich. Okay, good for now. Kathy's good for now. Excellent. You're very welcome, Kathy. What this does for your website and your blog, when you're layering in all of these different optimizations, right? It's just like a sandwich. And if you think of a non-optimized website as 2 pieces of bread, right? It'll sustain life. Any website that works enough that when you type in the URL that you get there will sustain life, right? So, but we don't want to just sustain life. Who looks forward to 2 slices of bread for lunch? Nobody. And neither does Google. So each of those 6 sections, your title tags, your headlines, your H3s, your body copy, images, your text links. Now, okay, you've got your slice of bread. Now you've got some organic turkey, lettuce, tomato, mayo, or maybe some honey mustard, right? Got a pickle on the side, whatever else, your favorite drink. Now you've got a robust offering. You've got a New York deli style sandwich. I'm from New York, if you couldn't tell. And now what you have is it's very palatable to the human eye. And it's also very palatable to Google, okay? And when Google sees that, again, it's giving you more authority. Another really good way to look at what this authority means. What does that mean, right? This credibility that you get, or what I like to call the buoyancy factor, is think about a raft. Okay, you're going rafting with 5 friends or family members. So the raft is in your trunk and it's got no air in it. You take it out and you pump a little air in, right? So maybe you pump in 10%, you throw it in the water. Most likely it's going to sink. Maybe parts of it are above the water, parts of it are below. But the point is, it's not ready for anybody to sit in, right? So this buoyancy, or optimizing your website, is very similar to pumping up that raft. As you add value to each of those sections we talked about, it's like pumping in more pressure per square inch into that raft until it gets to the point that even with 6 people sitting on it, it stays above the water, right? So think of your website the same way. You're not optimized. Let's pretend this hand is your website. It's nowhere to be found, right? Maybe it's on page 3, 4, 5, but now all of a sudden you add SEO, you add optimized blogs, and now you start to rise up and Google starts to put you on page 2 and then on page 1. And then if you continue this and you do it really well, you'll rank in the top 1, 2, 3, or 4 on page 1, which of course is what we want, right? So thanks for putting up also with my food analogies. I tend to talk about food a lot. So any other questions, guys, please let me know. And in the meantime, we are going to move on back to our slides. So this is Max and Joss. Max is in the Lego shirt and Joss is in the striped blue shirt, which coincidentally he wore to school today. That was not planned. So the reason why you see my children is because I want to talk about something very important called stuffing. Okay. Yes, stuffing. So what stuffing is it's considered what's called a black hat practice, which if you think about Old West terms, it's the bad guy. It's bad news. It's not something that you want to be doing. Stuffing would be very much like a Gertrude Stein book, which is very repetitive. You know, a cow is a cow is a cow is a cow is a cow. And probably some of you don't know what I'm talking about with Gertrude Stein, which is a famous writer. But anyway, the point being, if SEO is a really good keyword or keyword phrase for me, I don't want to use it 50 or 60 times, especially if my copy is almost only 200 or 300 words long. That's what stuffing is, exactly what it sounds like. Shoving in as many keywords as you humanly can. And if you do that, Google hates it. They look at it, they say, oh, that guy's stuffing. And once you're identified as stuffing a page, there is a possibility, not absolute, that you will lose some of that credibility. You will lose some of your authority. Now think about it. You've got a 25-page website and you've stuffed all 25 pages. What can often happen is that you will fall into what I call the black hole of Google Panda. Never to be found again. Your website drops off the search results because Google says, you know what? this content is offensive to us, it is black hat practices, and it certainly isn't relevant. It's a tactic that someone's using to try and get SEO value. So since it doesn't meet the contingencies Google has laid out, it disappears. I've seen this happen. I've seen this happen when I was brought on to projects where people hired me because they're like, Joey, we don't rank for anything ever, and we don't know what's wrong. And I had to fix it. So if you find that your website is tanked for whatever reason, there are ways to fix it. It can take up to 6 months, depending on how bad the problem is. But just know that there are ways. So back to my kids. They did a little video a few months ago, right around Thanksgiving. I've been wanting for years to make a video about stuffing, and I finally did. So they'll explain to you what keyword stuffing is. See, I shouldn't have said anything. I'm sorry, guys. I should have let them talk about it because they do a much better job than I did. So anyway, here's Max and Joss. And the video is just about a minute long. So let's try one more time. Looks like we may be experiencing technical difficulties. So let's try one more time. If not, it's no biggie. But it's important for you guys to get a good understanding of this, because it can be very tempting to put in the keywords quite a bit. Here we go. Okay, we're not working. So anyway, if you want to see my kids talk about stuffing, you can go to the Cuppa SEO website and check it out there. Here we are saying all kinds of good things about Google, and YouTube's not really working. So next up, let's talk about social media. So we touched upon the part of social media that's got good SEO value, right? But let's just talk really quickly about how to implement it. So far, we've talked about how to implement your SEO into your website pages, into your blog, and now with social media, this is the easy one because it's really usually pretty short, right? So here's 2 examples. The one on the left is from LinkedIn. The one on the right is from Facebook. They're identical in just about every way. So I wanted to show you guys that it is okay to put the same content through social media channels, through multiple channels. But let's just dissect this super quick. We've got in each one, we've got online marketing demystified as our headline. And then I cascade. I like to make that an easy read, just a few words. Then we've got a couple of lines of copy that are relevant, that are, again, addressing those pain points, just like we talked about, making about the customer. Do you find online marketing confusing? Then join us Wednesday, yada, 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 for a holistic view of online marketing. Register and learn more at. And that link pushes them directly to that particular webinar. The image, of course, supports the content, but it's also optimized with relevant keywords. Okay, so in this case, it might say something like Cuppa SEO, holistic approach to online marketing. So this way Google knows, even though we're going through LinkedIn and Facebook, there's not that much SEO value, but Google knows what the picture's about, but so does Facebook and LinkedIn. All right, and sometimes you'll see, occasionally, Facebook or LinkedIn show up as a top result in Google when you search for something, okay? And that's not going to happen unless we're optimizing like this, having those keywords in the name of the image. So there are a few other areas I'd like to talk about with you, just to kind of give you an idea of where else on social media do I optimize, right? Because this is pretty easy. I write up a post, I make sure it sounds good, I address a customer pain point, and then I optimize my photo, I upload it, I move on with my day. But what about when I'm not pushing through content? How can I make my social media channels work for me while I'm sleeping or on vacation? Let's take a look at Facebook first. Facebook, when you go to edit, they're going to give you a lot of opportunity, okay? At the top of the page is where we'll start. You see two images. You've got the cup of SEO coffee cup, which of course I've dropped in and optimized that image. Then there's a picture of me drinking coffee. Actually, my son, Max, took that picture at a local coffee shop called Bradbury's. This is 4 years ago. He did such a good job, though. I use it everywhere. I love it. So anyway, that's optimized as well. And then you'll see right next to my picture, it says the name of my company. And then it says consultant copywriting service, web design marketing. Actually, sorry, web design marketing consultant copywriting service. So when you're in Facebook, it's going to give you opportunity to pick categories. And sometimes your categories won't fit exactly. Like for some reason, nobody likes to have category SEO. But if you're a massage therapist, there's like 5 or 6. So it's just kind of weird. So what do? If your category isn't there, pick the one that's closest to it. Pick the one that mirrors what you do most accurately. Okay? And then you guys will see, oops, goodness me. Apologies, I hit the wrong button. Gremlins in my computer here. So having a little bit of technical difficulty, but let's talk more about Facebook. When you're in the editor side of Facebook, you're not going to see it here, but there'll be areas for you to populate things. Company name, phone number, email, phone, URL, your website address. Okay, things like that are important to have in there. And also your physical address, if you're comfortable sharing it. If you work from home, it may not be the best place to share it. If you do work from home, I would highly encourage you getting a professional business address. And probably the easiest and least expensive way to do that is to talk to any affiliations or associations that you're part of and ask them if you can use their address. If they say no, contact the local UPS store in the neighborhood or the city where you want to do your business. And it's about $200 or $300 a year. And they'll give you a full address that you can put on Facebook, LinkedIn, Google My Business, all that. All right. Because this helps with the algorithm. Your address is helping direct traffic to you, especially on Google My Business. So that's what we're going to talk about for Facebook. Let's move on to what is going on. I hope you guys are having an okay connection. Mine is totally wonky. So please accept my apologies if you guys are experiencing like some little loop. Okay. So it looks like Google My Business, looks like Google Hangouts has dropped off. So if you guys can hear me, what I'm going to do is sign back in, okay? If you lose me, you'll have to sign back in as well.